All right, welcome to Mastering the Middle Game. As usual, I've dumbed down the lecture since I'm a Grandmaster. So I'll make it so low key that even, okay, you can do it. Yeah, he can do it over there. We actually have a master in the audience. Okay, so since the old guys are playing well lately, not me, but like Ivanchuk, as far as we know, Ivanchuk's great, but this is 2 weeks later, so you guys are like, Ivanchuk lost all his games on day 3, what do you mean? But as far as we know, Ivanchuk's great. So Ivanchuk's playing in the World Rapid, which has many, 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 many strong grandmasters, and he's in first place. And he beat Magnus Carlsen today very convincingly. And he has 8 out of 10, which is reasonable, since the average rating of his opponents is about 2,700. So good performance rating. And another player who's doing well lately is Vishy Anand. Another player who's pretty good is Vladimir Kramnik. So since the 40-year-old guys are killing it, I was thinking, let's look at middle games from an older player when they were younger, confusing the audience, which is usually my goal. Right, Arjun? Right. Okay. And so who better to look at openings and middle games and mastering the middle game than none other than Garry Kasparov? Okay? And I don't want to be the used to police, but he used to be good. Okay, so. Now, these games were actually played a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And this game was played in '83 when Kasparov was how old? I'm sure you all know when he was born. Arjun's doing the math. So that means you don't know when he was born because there's no math. You know 63 to 83 is 20 years. You don't have to do math. Okay, so Kasparov was 20 when this game was played. And the next game was played when he was 17. And he was pretty good at the middle game when he was younger. Then when he got older, every game was a draw, Geary style. Okay, that was before Geary. Okay, in fact, Kasparov played in one of the Linares tournaments that was very strong. Out of 14 games, he drew 13. That was near the end of his career. At the beginning of his career, he usually had 13 decisive games. Now, one of my good friends is Aviv Friedman, and people like his lectures. And he comes here often to do the big tournaments. He helps out for the live commentary. He's the guy in their ear telling them this guy won, that guy resigned, go to this game, et cetera, et cetera. And he does the puzzles also. And this is one of Aviv's favorite games. He's memorized it, but that would take seconds, so I'm not going to do that. I memorized games from 150 years ago. So when I'm 130 years old, all I've got this game memorized. It takes me a while. And this is the game, which I'm sure you all know, Kasparov-Portisch. And Lajos Portisch, let me tell you how strong he is. I lost to his brother 20 years ago. I think it was 30 years ago. And everybody knows his brother's name. Good timing. Now you're famous. Okay. So, you know, it's funny. Currently, not for you at home, currently there are some St. Louis players in Las Vegas playing in the North American Open. The North American Open is much weaker than usual because all the good players in the US are at the Pan Ams. Because all the US players that are good are college students. Wink. Oh, wait, did I say wink? Anyway, so there's like 40 grandmasters playing in the college tournament instead of those 40 grandmasters playing in Vegas. So Vegas isn't very strong. Therefore, Grandmaster Ken West went. He figured he's a grandmaster, the other grandmaster, and he actually drew a higher rated player in the first round. Okay, I wonder if he was dreaming. Anyway, the point of the story, if there is one, is Ken West was walking around. They're like, Ken West. And he's like, yeah. He says, are you the Ken West? And he's like, I'm a Ken West. Yeah, and he was the Ken West. So this actually happened to Kummer about a year ago. They're like, are you Mike Kummer from the chess club videos? And he's like, yeah. And now it's with Ken West. So he's the most famous Ken West there is, or will ever be. Anyway, Aviv Friedman, who I was talking about earlier, and we went off on a tangent, this is one of his favorite games because Kasparov just rolls over his opponent. His opponent didn't do anything wrong. So that just proves that white wins in chess. Well, I mean, chess is a draw, but not when you're playing Kasparov. Okay, so Kasparov's white, and they played a Queen's Indian. And if you know Kasparov, you know what move he played here because he basically stole the Petrosian variation. What's that? The master knows, amazing. Ha, knight c3, he tricked you. Good job. Actually, Kasparov always played a3, and then he lost a famous game to Viktor Korchnoi in a candidates match, London 1984. Then he won all the other games. So, okay, so knight c3. Kasparov likes to play a3 and stop the pin, and he did here. So Portisch could have played bishop to b4, but he decided to play bishop b7, a3, and we transposed to the Kasparov variation. What's funny about this is most games they're not playing a3 anymore. However, there was one played today. This position occurred in the World Rapid with two of the best players in the world. What was the result? I don't remember. I was teaching camp all day. So I spent the rest of the day after camp crying and during the camp. So, right, Arjun? Right. Yeah, Arjun's like, yep, I know that camp. Okay, so a3, knight c3 was the Petrosian variation. Kasparov stole it, and Petrosian was known to play somewhat boring chess, Kasparov not. So when Petrosian played it, it was to stop bishop b4, it loses a tempo, it gives white a very tiny advantage. When Kasparov played it, he checkmated you. So the truth hurts. Okay, d5, c d5, knight d5, this is all normal. Pawn to e3. Some of you would want to play e4. Unfortunately, after knight takes knight, your e-pawn's not sufficiently defended. A brilliant pawn sacrifice by accident. Okay, so e3, knight c3, which is unusual. Bishop e7, bishop b5 check, because he wants black to play c6, because then the bishop is sort of silly. He also wants black to play knight d7, because knight e5 is good. So after bishop b5 check, it's hard to play a normal move. If you play bishop c6, the bishop moves away, and now you can't play c5. So bishop b5 check is sort of a nuance that we see in a lot of openings. And of course, Portisch played c6 because he'll just play c5 anyway. And c5. Okay, getting one move closer to the time control. Yeah, it's true. If white had played bishop d3 and black played c5, then they would get into time trouble. Okay, Karpov would approve. Knight c6, and now bishop b2. And actually, this reminds me of a game, I don't have to tell you, I have to tell them, of the game Bobby Fischer, Ronald Finegold, which I recently showed in a lecture, because Fischer in a French defense also put his bishop behind all these pawns, confusing the spectators. Hopefully you're confused. It shows how strong you are. Okay, and some of you are like, he moved his bishop out, that sounds good. It is good because eventually these pawns will move. And the bishop will be very strong on the diagonal. And the bishop can't move right now to somewhere like f4 or g5, so we got to move it somewhere. And even though the bishop's not great right now, it has potential, and it helps white connect the rooks and put them in the center. Rook c8, queen e2, castles. Rook a d1. Now, when I give Morphy lectures, which I do often, I talk about how Morphy moved every piece. Okay, he didn't just move one piece and then say, wow, that was interesting. And Kasparov, of course, wrote the famous series of books. You. There we go, my great predecessors. And he talks about all the great players before him. Obviously, he studied the world champions and the great players of the past. And like every other strong player today, when he plays the middle game, although he doesn't play now, because now I would show him who the boss is, him. Okay, they didn't hear that, did they? So Kasparov, like I do when I play, when I win occasionally, moves a different piece every move, getting all of his pieces active. Of course, Portisch isn't a bad player. He gets all his pieces out also. Unfortunately, black doesn't have a lot of pieces near his king. And there was a game played today, not for you, but for you, which I was just looking at with Danny Machuca. It was a game Carlsen played against Yakovenko. And the end of that game was very interesting. It was 2 queens against a queen and 6 pawns. I've never seen that before. But in the middle game, Carlsen tried to attack by playing e4, e5. Yakovenko had nothing near his king, so Yakovenko traded all the pieces off. And he got to a drawn ending, and then he lost it. Carlsen winning a drawn ending. Never heard of that. Oh, wait a minute. That's every game. Okay, so here, Kasparov doesn't win drawn endings. Kasparov checkmates you. That's how he rolls. Okay, that's more exciting for the spectators. Okay, although the match Carlsen-Karyaka was pretty interesting. Long pause. Not. So queen c7. And I like that move because when my opponent's rook is opposite my queen, I don't want to see the move rook takes queen. So queen c7 I like. Okay, c4, which is, right, and it gets out of the way of the bishop, so now we're ready to go. Unfortunately for black, white has two bishops on the diagonals getting towards black king, and black doesn't have a knight on f6. That would be a nice knight to have. Then the bishop on b7 would not be hindered, and the knight would be defending the king. But that's the way life goes. C takes d4, e takes d4, and these pawns are known as hanging pawns. Okay? And when we say hanging pawns, when we go into the chess club and watch them play blitz chess, those are different hanging pawns. Those are pawns that are just hanging. Right, Arjun? We have a lot of brilliant sacrificial masters playing blitz chess over there. If only they knew they were sacrificing. So hanging pawns are neither good nor bad. They're both. They're good when you win and your pawns control all the squares, and they're bad when your opponent takes them. Okay? So in this game, white won, so they're good. But if black had won, you would have said, wow, look at those weak pawns. What a patzer. And black has a very nice pawn structure. Okay, you can't, no doubled pawns, no isolated pawns. These are the hanging pawns. This pawn's isolated. Black has everything developed. Sounds good. Knight a5, attacking the c pawn. Not only does it attack the c pawn, it opens up the diagonal for the bishop. Okay, and this is the difference between strategy and tactics. In strategy, I don't think Kasparov was superior to other strong grandmasters, but an ability to calculate and figure out material deficits and figure out attacking chances, he was slightly better than the gentleman who just walked in. If I said his name, the whole video would be banned. Okay, so we just say the person just walked in. Okay, initials are DM. Okay, I think it's like Draw Master, so it was Garry. No. Okay, so the problem is black's position looks nice, but his king doesn't have a lot of protection, and white's knight can come in, white's bishop can go here, the other bishop is coming, the queen is coming, winter is coming. You didn't get that joke, you can't laugh. Winter is Coming is a book Kasparov wrote, but it's not a chess book, so nobody read it. Bam. Man, I might get banned for that. Wow, no. I can make fun of Kasparov, it's okay. All right, now we'll get back to making fun of Nakamura. All right, raise your hand if you know how many points Nakamura has right now out of 10. You. Ooh, good answer, extra credit. It's really wrong, but I like it. Okay, no, he's playing in an open term where you just play everybody. So he should have like 8 out of 10, like Ivanchuk. But he has 5.5 out of 10 because the truth hurts, right? Chess is hard. Okay, so remember I was telling you the bishop on b2 is going to get good, and you were taking notes, Ben's a liar, Ben's a liar, Ben's a liar. It's true, but not about this. So if we want our bishop b2 to be really, really good, and we're a 20-year-old Kasparov, what move do we play? What's that? Have you memorized this game? He's like, no, but your hints are really good. Okay, somehow the highest rated player knows all the answers. d5. Okay, and we might lose a pawn, but Kasparov didn't care about pawns. He cared about checkmate and piece activity. Now that bishop on b2 is looking pretty good. Okay, we must take. Takes. Kasparov immediately wins his pawn back with the obvious. Bishop h7 and rook d5. But you would think, how do you checkmate somebody if you're trading all the pieces off? Good question. Danny Machuca's like, yeah, what's going on here? You can't do any of that. Okay, and the reason is all of white's pieces are pretty close to the black king. Black has a lot of pieces that are not close to his king, especially the knight on a5. And, well, Jen Shahadi would be happy because we're going to have a rover soon. Okay, the rook went to d5. It's going to go to h5 or g5. Okay, king g8, trying to get back. And again, what would Kasparov play in this position? The scariest move ever. Arjun, rook h5, even scarier. Bishop g7, didn't see that coming. Okay, and bishop g7 was not unnecessary, but Kasparov was 20. So when he was 20, he saw more than the typical supercomputer. So he analyzed many, many, many variations, and he was like, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. So he played bishop g7. Of course, he could have played rook h5 or just attacked slowly and had a really good position, but that's not how Kasparov played. Okay. Black has to take or just be a pawn down and getting mated. And knight e5. So now white wants to play queen g4 check. White wants to play rook to d7. And even though there's no immediate win or threats, black doesn't really have a good defense here because most of his pieces are on the queen side. And this is called a long-term sacrifice. There's no pawns that are going to grow back here for black. It's not bug house where black can play g6, h6, f6 and be safe. So even if he doesn't mate him right away, he knows in the long run, I have more pieces attacking than black has defending. And if you were playing a supercomputer, it might defend perfectly. But a human with the clock ticking, and this was 1983, so the clock was ticking. The clocks don't tick anymore. Right, Arjun? Yeah. Arjun's like, what's the analog clock? Right? You agree? Do you know what an analog clock is? Yeah. You do? What is it?
It's like those two clocks.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? You ever play with those?
Yeah.
Why?
Before I had a clock.
I used somebody else's clock, and they were like 90 years old. Okay. So, yeah, this was in 83, so we didn't use digital clocks too much. They existed, but we didn't use them. Okay, so rook f d8. And this does two things. Black wants to trade rooks because when somebody's mating you, it would be good to trade rooks. Then they might not mate you. What else does it do that helps black a little bit? Anyone? You. You raised your hand.
Yeah, that was wrong.
Oh, well, the truth hurts.
I was going to say
Sorry? Which is the escape square? Right. So now the king, instead of being stuck on the h and g file, getting mated by the queen and the rook, we can play king f8. Also, I pointed out rook d7 might be annoying, but it's not annoying now. Okay, so that's what happened. He checked and he got to the escape square. Unfortunately, when you have a rook on f1, which white does, or a rook on f8, which black did, you're defending your f pawn. And when you move it away, you're not. As in the game, Krasenkov, Nakamura. Everybody's nodding. No, they're not nodding. I'm kidding. Yeah. No, anybody? Nothing? No? Sorry, my hair. Okay, so this game I lectured about before you were born, well, before Arjun was born. And this is a game where Nakamura was black and played queen takes f2 check, a pawn, and Krasenkov's king walked all up the board. You don't know this game? You'll like that game. Yeah, Krasenkov, Nakamura. That's his favorite game. That'll always be his favorite game. He sacked the queen for a pawn. Then the king walked up the board, as in the game Averbach Kotov from Zurich. Oh, you're so close. 53, yeah. Okay, and where he sacked his queen and the king walks up the board. Very similar. Okay, so Kasparov played queen f5 with obvious threats. Yeah, they see it. They pretend they don't, but they do. Yeah? Right? 4-move checkmate, queen f7. Okay, so we have to stop queen f7, and he played f6. What's wrong with f6? You. Yeah, never play f6. Luckily, I was only 13 years old at the time, so he could break my rule. Okay, so, man, it's hard to play black here. You could play bishop to d6. Very suspicious. I wouldn't play f6. I'd be afraid to play f6 because it weakens all the white squares. I like my pawn on f7. So I would play bishop d6 and lose differently. And in 1983, that was Microsoft's motto, lose differently. Okay? Yeah, too complicated for this class. All right, f6, boo. Knight d7 check. This looks pretty tough for black. Okay, and he sacrificed an exchange because black still has a small material advantage, but by trading all the pieces, there's no way he'll get mated. Also, I don't really see a good move here for black. I see moves that get checkmated, but I don't see good moves. So I like rook takes d7, and queen c5, and Kasparov traded queens and won the endgame. See, they're actually laughing. That's good. Okay, now, he played queen h7. The truth hurts. Okay, and it's extra difficult when you're playing somebody with a big reputation, Carlsen, Kramnik, and you think, wow, that guy's pretty good. Then they're playing you, they're sacking material, everything you see is mate, your flag is hanging, you figure they're playing well, and you're really scared. So Kasparov, when he was 20, was pretty scary. Less scary now, but scary when he was 20, because he calculated really well and he always attacked. And most of his attacks were sound, so that was a tough combination. Rook c7, trying to trade more. And now, there's more than one way to checkmate his opponent. Queen check, rook d3. And I like this rook d3 idea because instead of attacking on the 7th rank, which is impossible, because black's rook is on the 7th rank, he tries to play rook g3 and attack over there. If white could move twice, rook g3, queen g8 mate, and other moves would win also. And rook h3, rook h7 isn't bad either. So he sort of evicted the rook, but it's being evicted to a better square. Why is the attack working? Well, this knight's over here. If we put the knight on g7 or e5 or g5 or e6 or f8, then maybe black would be okay. But as soon as black played knight a5, that's the moment Kasparov played d5. He doesn't sacrifice every game, but when he sacrifices, he has a good reason. And in the middle game, instead of saying, whoa, instead of playing in certain people's style of I'm going to sacrifice every game, you could say, oh, my opponent put all his pieces over there. Now I'll sacrifice. Also, he sacrificed every game because he was 20. So. Okay, knight c4. Hey, he did what I said. He got his knight back in the game. Rook fd1, Morphy style, getting all of the pieces into the attack. Knight e5, queen check, and black's king is nice and safe. No. And g4 check. And when you play g4 check, it's because you see all the way to the end. Not like, uh-oh, now my king is exposed. I shouldn't have done that. So when Kasparov plays g4, he knows the rest of the game already. Okay, the king moves up, rook d4, king moves up. And now, as in the game short Timon, white resigned. No, nothing. No, you don't get that? You don't get that? Oh, you get it, okay. Yeah. What was the last move in short Timon? What was he going to do? What? King h6. See, there you go. Yeah. Right. So when short walked his king up, it was intentional, not because Kasparov was mating him. And believe me, Kasparov mated short plenty. Okay, especially last year here at the chess club. Bam. Short got 1.5 out of 10, and he was lucky. Did he even get that many points? Wow. Okay. Queen b3 check. So my two favorite moves of this game are retreats. I like retreating. When Kasparov moved his rook back from d7, and then moved his queen back to b3. So king e2 isn't very good because of queen e3 mate, and there's probably other mates I don't see. Like rook e4 is almost mate. Close enough, right? It's not mate, but it's close. And there's probably other mates, like rook 4 to d2. That's probably it. So here he resigned. If he plays the obvious move, queen c3, then white plays the obvious move. Yes.
Rook d3.
Where?
Rook d3.
Rook d3. He didn't say which one because it didn't matter. Yeah. Very good. Right. Right. That's why it doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. And also a funny variation for you at home. If black tries to steal a pawn in this position, or doesn't, plays king f4 or king g4, queen g3 check wins the rook. The truth hurts. You're losing anyway, but now you lose quicker. Okay. So let's say you take and then check wins your rook. Aw, too bad. So somehow, with black's king on f3, he lost. No, that actually makes sense. Yeah. But black did get his knight back into play, so that was good.
Because he played f3.
Well, I played f6. Yeah. Well, king f3 and f3 are different. What's the big difference? Okay, so that made a lot of sense for you at home, but mainly for the people here. All right, so that was Kasparov when he was 20. That wasn't attacking enough, because he was too old at that point. Let's look when he was 17. Okay, and this is against my chum, Istvan. Oh, wait a minute, I mean my pal Benko. Oh, wait, I mean Istvan Csom. And he's from the country you all know? Hungary, right. Okay, and Hungary actually had a good Olympic team in 1980. Amazing, right? Okay, they had Lajos Portisch, we just showed, and they had Ribley, who was a candidate, Zoltan Ribley, and they had Csom, and they had Andraz Zadorian, who wrote the famous book. Not too famous? Nobody? He wrote the book Black is Okay. Okay, although he wasn't black against Kasparov, and it wasn't okay. Okay, so Kasparov's white again, and again plays a d4 opening. This time we have a Nimzo-Indian. And Kasparov, being very aggressive, played the move d5. Okay, a move I would never play. In fact, one of the world under-12 champion, Kumar, I think he plays this with white, but he plays knight f4 in this position, which is the other move. Okay, so d5, very aggressive. And this is very funny, because in this position, black played the move bishop c5. And you would think in this position, black will never play bishop c5. But since white played d5, black's like, all right. And it's very hard to move our knight off of e2 because of discovered checks. So they played g3, bishop g2. That's fair. Okay, so black's losing some time to get his bishop active. And this is a very interesting position for me, because if I was white, I would play passive and bad and I would lose. Okay, because I like to play solid. And when I fink out on my king bishop like white's doing, and I have a pawn on d5, so I have a space advantage, I try to improve my position slowly. But I'm not a 17-year-old Kasparov. Okay, and 17-year-old Kasparov just checkmated you. And when I look at this position, I don't think it's checkmate at all. And in fact, bishop f5 is probably a mistake, because after bishop f5, this actually encourages what white does that ends up winning the game. And that was sort of like in the last game when black played knight a5 and white played d5 playing for mate, because black's knight was on a5. What move does bishop f5 encourage? You. What would Matt Larson say? Thumbs up, right?
Yeah.
You like g4, you don't know that?
Yeah, I know
Yeah, so you should be okay. Now, by the way, today, and for you 2 weeks ago, Matt Larson played Garry Kasparov in Sweden in the tournament, and Matt was black and was better winning the whole game than the last 10 moves. I forgot what happened, but Kamsky won. Okay, and I talked to him about it. He got in time trouble and hung everything. So, solid. But he did outplay him with black, so that's better than I could do. I played Kamsky too, but I forgot after move 3 what happened. Okay, bad memory. Okay, so Kasparov g4. Matt Larson would be proud. Problem is, the bishop on f5 doesn't have a lot of squares. And all of those pieces that are defending black's king, Kasparov attacks them with tempo. He just keeps attacking them and pushing his pawns. Okay, so bishop e4, knight g3. And this actually reminds me of a game that I won. And that's not too uncommon, because I win so few games that if remembering the games I won, it's like on one hand, right? I have a funny hand, I have extra digits. Right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, and so I was playing Al Chow way before you were all born, okay, especially Claudio, okay? Like before Arjun was born, but way before Claudio was born. And in my game with Al Chow, we had white squared bishops, just like the players here do. And my opponent went to great lengths to trade those white squared bishops, and then I played knight f5 and destroyed him. That reminded me of this game. Black decided to trade the white squared bishops, and now that knight's going to get to f5. Or as I like to say, knife f5. Yeah, Kasparov must have knew that. Although I did learn the term knife f5 in 1984. This was 1980. The mysteries of life. Okay, so knight f8, as Bent Larson would say. What's that? Correct. How come the highest rated player always has the right answer? Shocking. Amazing. Knight f8, now black is safe, and white didn't resign. Okay, g5, Matt Larson would be proud. h4, man, Kasparov wasn't kidding. Kasparov was like, well, these pieces are all here and haven't moved, I guess I'll checkmate you. Okay, that's why he's Kasparov, and we're sitting in a class cold and confused. Knight e5, h5, f6, boo, never play f6. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what black should do. This knight can't go anywhere good. The rook is being blocked by the knight. This bishop is blocking the other rook if it wants to get open. And white's just going to put a knight on e4, knight on f5, g6, h6, rook h1, f4. I don't know, it looks like white just attacks black, and black says, oh well. So he played f6 trying to do something, knight e4, and he ruined Kasparov's pawn structure, but Kasparov activated his pieces. And Kasparov didn't care about pawn structure very much. He wanted all of his pieces near your king. And this is actually very nice, these knights here, because they can't get kicked out. The knight on e5, which you all think is great, white can kick that out easily with f4. The knight on e4 can never get kicked out. The white knight on g3 is ready to replace it in case of a trade. And white has knight f5, and black's king is getting a little open here. Queen b6, saving his queen. h6, knight f7, hg. Man, that's looking tough over there. Knight d7. He doesn't want to take the pawn. He thinks the pawn is actually helping him. It blocks white's pieces, which could possibly be true. Check. Queen to b5. Rook h1. And now something really funny happened. Bishop b6, which is actually a good move. He wants to trade off the bishop, and he wants to put pressure on this pawn so this queen can't be running away anywhere. Queen takes check on d5. Queen f3, defending the pawn. And after knight e5, how did white save his queen? It's a trick question. Any student of mine should know the answer. Oh, you? Ah. Not knight f5. Knife f5, yeah. So this is actually very funny. Okay, this is a humiliating part of the game for black. Black's knight is on f7. I can prove it. There it is. That's good proof. And he moved it off of f7, and he thought, wow, the queen's going to move, and then I'll play queen takes d5 check, and I'm the best. And if bishop takes the knight, he'll take with the rook, attacking the d5 pawn, and getting rid of the bishop on f6. So after here, threatening knight h6 checkmate, he's like, how do I stop knight h6 mate? And he stopped it. But I don't think black got a lot accomplished there. Knight e5 back to f7. Yeah, so knight e5 is a pretty silly move for a strong grandmaster who's playing on the Olympic team. Because after knight f5, he had to go back. I have a theory. Are you guys interested? Time trouble. Because the guy's checkmating you the whole game, g4, h4, g5, h5, h6, and you're like, I hate getting checkmated. And so by defending, he probably had very little time on his clock. And he was like, okay, knight e5, that attacks the queen, and white can't attack me anymore. And then he played knight f5, and he's like, oh, okay. And now we play Arjun's move. It was the move you just said. Yeah, rook h7. I hate when that happens. And as you can see, like the polymorphy that I love, white has a few things around the black king, and like the last game, black has a lot of pieces not defending the black king. Okay, rook h7, what do we say? The truth hurts. Okay, and white's threatening rook h8 check, and Arjun, you're too young to see that. Yeah, that's because it's terrible. It's rated X for extra strong attack, right? That was good spelling, right?
It should be rated E.
For extra strong attack? For everyone? Oh. This joke was funnier than mine. All right, so rook takes h7, and I keep pushing the arrow, but nothing happens. Yeah. Okay, and if he doesn't resign, probably king takes rook makes sense. Queen h5 is mate in 10, according to what I read, and rook h1 is mate in 5 and or 6. But they're playing moves like give all their pieces away, let him queen with double mate. Terrible. Okay, so for example, this would be good for white. There's like mate in 2 here. There's some quick mate here. If only I knew what it was. Maybe king g6 wins and he should have played on. Let's see, if I make a queen, and then you take it, is this mate?
Yes.
Good answer. Yeah. So this looks good for white. Okay, and obviously king g8's not very helpful. Talk about all your pieces attacking. Okay, now it looks like Carlsen's game because white has 2 queens. Okay, and then that would be good for white. So after rook takes h7, black resigned because it's all mate and his flag is falling and he's got nothing. So in that game, black had a lot of pieces on the queen side, not defending his king. So Kasparov started a big king side attack, just like in the game with Portisch. I didn't realize when I set up the games that he's beating the Hungarian team. So the Hungarians could be mad at me, losing to Kasparov. Who would have thunk it? And when Kasparov was very young, as in these games, this is mainly how he played. And when he got older, he played better and more solid Carlsen and Karpov style. But if this was slightly inaccurate and it wasn't the exact right way to play, his opponents didn't know why. Mikhail Tal style. But probably better than Tal, because he saw more variations. Well, Tal saw a lot of variations. But he wasn't as sick as Tal. I mean, maybe up here he was, but not here. Yeah. Tal had a lot of heart, just not, you know. Yeah, Tal should have been alive this year because everybody died this year. Not your year, our year. Your year doesn't matter. They're all in 2017. They're all confused. Wow, how could it be worse? So, for those of you who are wondering at home, the answer is yes, I'm still married. Although by the time this video comes out, who knows, right? I mean, my wife was here this morning and now she's not here anymore. So, and the truth hurts. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Is that right, Arjun? No. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. She's home.
The world is a harsh place.
Yeah, Arjun's confused. You didn't give me a wedding present. Come on. Aren't you like 8?
Yeah.
Come on, what are your responsibilities? Yeah.